Welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm going to be showing you exactly how a BRRRR works. Let's get started. All right, everyone. So today is going to be a walkthrough in a classroom setting where I'm going to show you exactly the math on how to do a BRRRR. Now, a BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance. There's another R some people use for repeat, but the general process is you buy a distressed property, you have a team or yourself that goes in, put some work into it, make it look nice, get someone in there to rent it, and then refinance it, okay? So let's walk through how this might look. Let's use an example that you buy a property, so purchase, okay, for let's make it $40,000, all right? So that's your purchase price. That can be found, let's say you through a wholesaler, maybe off the MLS, probably not in this market. It might be at an auction, through a foreclosure, whatever. You buy a distressed asset that needs some work, okay? Now you work with your team and your team says, hey, this looks like it might cost $20,000 to rehab. Fantastic. Okay, so your rehab's amount is, let's say, $20,000. Awesome. So now, in going through the process of buying a property, you're going to have to work with the title company. They're going to charge you fees for closing the deal, getting it in your name, the lawyer fees, all that. That usually is around $2,000 to $3,000. Okay, that's called closing cost. So we're going to call that closing. Okay, now that's $2,000. So at this point, you're all in for $62,000. Okay. Now, before you do any of these deals, you definitely want to get some ideas of what this is going to be worth after you go to refinance it, because the lender is going to be looking at comps and appraisals and say, hey, look, your property is X. We can only give you, Y in terms of the cash out. All right. So after this, this is now the all-in cost. You get a renter in there, and let's say it rents for, I don't know, $800. And later, I'm going to show you this cash flow and why this matters. So $800 is rent, okay? So you go to the bank, and the bank says, hey, look, we'll look at your property. It's worth $100,000, okay? $100,000 is what we call after repair value, commonly known as ARV. All right, so great. That's good news. You got $100,000 from the bank. Cool. And they say, but we're only going to give you 70% of that, okay? Because that's standard. Some banks are, as low as 60, but generally it's somewhere between 70 and 75%. We're going to assume 70%. They say, well, I'm only going to give you a loan for 70% of this, okay? So now the loan is, I'm going to put it as a liability, so a negative $70,000. What does that mean? Well, that means that the net of that, that this is what you get as a cash out. The difference of this is called equity. Okay. So even though you'll get a loan for $70,000, the value is still 100. So that's equity in that difference. Now the math works by saying, okay, great, I had this loan for $70,000. Okay. Now I put $62,000 into it. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. If you're crafty, what you do is you'll find people that offer money, capital, called hard money or private money lending, and they'll lend you, generally about 90% of this. So you'll get, $50,000, cover your BRRRR property, and you have to pay them interest, obviously, but you're only gonna have to come up with like $8,000. So if I'm starting out, this is a great way to start out, assuming you have a team that you trust and that knows what they're doing for the rehabs. That's the most critical part of this, as well as that the comps work out. But let's say that you had your own capital, you didn't do this. So you will actually have made the difference of these two numbers. You would actually get a cash out refi for $70,000, and you will put this amount into it, right? So you've actually made money on the BRRRR, and now you own a property with equity that is probably cash flowing, $100, $200 a month. All right, and now we'll get into those numbers in a second. But now I'll tell you, in this market, this doesn't usually happen. You might be upside down. So let's assume that this number was only, I don't know, $80,000. Let's assume that they said it's only worth $80,000. Therefore, we can only give you 70%, and 70% of $80,000 is $56,000. Now, $56,000 minus your initial investment is a negative $6,000. What this means is that you have $6,000 in the property. Okay, so you still have the equity of $24,000, but you had to put essentially $6,000 in this property in the end to keep it on in your portfolio. All right, so we figured out how the flow is in terms of the purchase and the rehabs and the refinance. Great. Now we have what we know as rent of $800. Okay. And the loan, let's just say that we got a rate and the loan ends up being, $450 a month. Okay. Now, property management, we'll just say it's a simple $80, right? $80. We'll say insurance. Usually insurance is $60 per $100,000 of property. So we'll say that's $50. You have a reserve for maintenance, really important. I keep around $50 to $75 per month for maintenance. So we'll call this main, and we'll make this $50 for simple math. Let's see, loan, property insurance or management, insurance, taxes. Got to pay those property taxes, which is a write-off, but pain in the butt. We're going to say it's 1% of the value. Remember, the value was 80 grand. So the way taxes work is it's the assessed value is usually minus land. So your base is probably around $700 per year in taxes. So paid monthly, you're looking at what? Let's call it $60 for easy math. Okay. So here's generally the operating expenses. Now there's another one called vacancy, but I have a different version that I use for that. Generally speaking, you don't have that expense until it happens. So I'm going to keep it out for now for easy math. So 450 plus 80 is 530. 530 plus 50 is 580. Plus another 50 is 630. Plus 60 is 690, right? So your expenses are 690. So this property is going to cash flow $110 a month. Okay, so now there's two ways to look at a return. You have the dollar return, which is arguably more important than the second one, which is the percentage return, or otherwise known as return on investment, or ROI. So the way to do that, okay, is we say, okay, well, we know our cash flow is $110 a month. We're going to take that times 12, and anyone do the math? 1,320. Okay, this is your annual cash flow. Now, what you do is, if you recall from the previous board that I had up, your capital that you had to invest after the refinance was $6,000. So you take the 1,320, right, divided into $6,000. That's give or take 22%. Check this out. Your return on investment is a 22% return on investment. And what's amazing about real estate is there are three categories really that drive the ROI. Cash flow is just one of them, right? You get cash flow, you get appreciation, and equity pay down. On top of that, you get taxable benefits, depending. So potentially 4, but at least 3. So this is your cash flow ROI. If you add up everything else, you're probably at a 35% or more or greater ROI. And so this is how the BRRRR model works. Not only can you see that it's a fantastic model to get started, but that this ROI can't be found in the market. You can't find this in the stock market, with safety. So this is why I'm a huge fan of real estate. So this is the BRRRR model. This flow is essentially the same thing for a turnkey rental, just that you have a lot more capital invested in the project. So your ROIs in a turnkey they're somewhere between 6 to 10%. But again, you have other variables that drive that total ROI. So good stuff. If you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe. We'll have more of these lessons upcoming in the future. And comment below. I'm curious to know what your thoughts were. Thanks.